You're listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. I'm your host, Pat Guyette. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow, quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow. All right, this episode, I sit down with Joe Pitruzello at Northeast Taxidermy, one of the best taxidermy shops in all of New England, and through our conversation, you'll see why. I mean, he just takes so much time and dedicates his whole life into the business, gets his hand on every single mount. So I do a quick podcast with him. He's a busy man, so that'll be, we'll start this podcast out with that interview. Separately, I'll add in a separate YouTube video. A couple guys came in and they were dropping off some fish that they caught in a tournament. Joe does great fish work too. And then they started talking about their buddy had a big rack, had shot a big deer in Pennsylvania, showed him a picture, and he's like, oh yeah, we're doing that deer actually. It's here right now. So they started walking through the shop, and I think one of the guys asked him, how do you make sure that the size of the deer, the actual size of the neck and everything is the size of the deer that is shot? And so Joe invited him into the shop and just showed him the whole process, and I've videotaped that whole thing. The audio isn't as good as the podcast because we're not using, the nice mics. It's just the camera mic, but I did a walkthrough following Joe in the shop there, and as he explains part of the process of stretching the hide and measuring the hide and then getting a form to fit that. So I thought that was pretty neat. I'll do a separate video on that. And then after this interview with Joe, I'm just going to talk through, give an update on the season so far. I don't think you guys have heard from me since I killed that 8-pointer and the story behind the 8-pointer. So I'll go into kind of what's happened since then. It's been I've been hunting a lot and hunting pretty hard and not seeing a ton of deer past that 6-pointer, but we'll go through the whole thing. And so let's get into it right now. Here's the interview with Joe, and then following that, we'll do the update and just a couple of thoughts on some things on the season here and how it's been going and some strategies. And here it is. Here's the podcast with Joe. What's your name?
Jake.
How long you been working here?
This is my 5th year.
Awesome. You enjoy it?
Oh yeah, I love it. My dream job.
Do you hunt as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the passion came from. A little bit of an artist growing up, loved hunting and fishing, and this is kind of the job that I wanted. I'm kind of just grateful Joe gave me the opportunity.
What are you working on here? Just getting some eye detail done?
Yeah, making sure the eye has the right shape and everything, and it's just as anatomically correct as we could get it. Every deer's a little different. Some will have bigger eyes, some will have smaller eyes, so you kind of just gotta do what you can to make it look as similar as possible.
All right, so another episode of Hunt Suburbia podcast, and I'm down here in, what's the town again?
Middletown, Connecticut.
Middletown, Connecticut. Northeast Taxidermy with Joe, and how do you say your last name?
Pitruzello.
Pitruzello, and it's a beautiful shop. It's been great to kind of see your guys in action and see what you do to really turn every piece into a piece of unique artwork, right? You were telling me. Can you just tell people a little bit about what your philosophy is on taxidermy?
Well, in what way? What do you mean by that?
Like each piece, to give people a background, I brought a Euro mount down that I got last year, the chocolate rack buck that's up on my YouTube page. And the coyotes destroyed that hide. This year I got a buck on the same day as I did last year, October 6th. The hide's in the same stage. And I've been wanting to turn the Euro into a shoulder mount. And the first thing Joe says, he goes, this cape is smaller than that deer that you shot last year, right? So I asked him, how can you tell? You just tell by just looking at it. And you were going through the characteristics of the skull, and you were telling me about the forms and stuff that taxidermists can use. So talk to people about what's important about that.
Well, what's important, and there's a lot of different levels of taxidermy. What we produce here is individual custom mounts. In other words, we take each mount individually. We take all the measurements and key points and literally custom build the mannequin to fit the measurements of your skin. This will allow us to get the maximum potential neck size without distortion. And that way each piece is its own individual art piece. There's a big difference between just buying a mannequin out of the catalog and assembling a skin and hanging it on the wall. Doing a quality taxidermy job, that's one thing. Design and presentation is another thing. The way you design and present a mount is just as important as the quality of the taxidermy. You want to design a mount that's going to enhance all of its best features, work with the customer so it fits in its available display area. If it's a multiple piece diorama, you want to make sure you take all the time so each piece enhances the other. And lastly, custom habitat work, rock work, ledge work, grass work. All that's very important in today's taxidermy. The theme, the habitat is a big factor today. We use a lot of grasses and trees and rock ledges, as you can see some of the stuff in the studio here. That's all important. I mean, all the little things add up to the big picture.
No, you can come in. Don't worry about it. Background noise is no problem. So, in other words, there's probably like out-of-the-box habitat, too, that taxidermists can get, and they don't do anything to customize that or make it stand out.
Correct.
So, there could be 1,000 people in America with the same habitat on the wall, right?
Correct. There's a place for everything. It all depends on what you're looking for. And I don't want to bash anything or anybody because, like I said, there's a place for everything. At this level and the clientele that I have, they're looking for unique individual custom designs. Buying a habitat out of a catalog or a generic rock, it kind of looks like that. And the clientele that we deal with they're looking for something different.
Yeah. So in other words, like you were giving me an example of your African clients and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like they could talk about like your thought process there. You're going to do it no matter what, but those guys, like they could send their business to other top taxidermists. If you don't have the level of attention to detail and care and quality control that you do here, those really big, probably you call them whale clients, I don't even know, but if those whales, they're going to know, and they will notice if you were off your A game, and that's why you touch every single piece, right?
Correct. And the one thing about these larger clients, for example, I'm in Connecticut. I'm not at the source. We don't have elk hunting here. We don't have African animals here. We don't have mountain goats and brown bears and giraffes and all those things. And we do an enormous amount of big game. That is our main source of income here is big game, North American and African. Okay, and like I said, we don't have those animals here. So these people are shipping these animals from all destinations to me, and there's an expense in that. And they can go anywhere. So there's got to be a reason. We got to make sure there's a reason for them to send these animals from Africa, from Alaska, wherever, directly to our studio. And it's, not only is doing a top quality taxidermy job, all of it. Communication with the customer is very important. Pre-hunt arrangements are very important.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I have clients that hunt all over the world. They'll go to, say they're going to go to Alaska, and then a couple of weeks later, they're off to a different destination. They may be going hunting chamois and tar, and then from that, they're going to Africa, and these guys are collectors. They're big-time hunters, and they want peace of mind. So what they do is they contact us ahead of time and tell us where they're going, and we'll set them up with the proper paperwork, custom laminated shipping tags for their hunt. And
wow, that's good service there.
We give them 3 tags, one for each animal, one for the skin, one for the hide, one for the horns. And depending on the destination they're coming from, their name is on it. They just give that package to the professional hunter. That'll allow them skins, hides, and horns to come from the bush to the port of entry, which is in New York, through customs. I have a broker on standby 24 hours a day, and they'll clear customs and be shipped directly to our studio. And then we contact the client when they arrive. And, that's very important. Pre-hunt arrangements, communication with the client, and working with him from concept to completion. And giving them peace of mind that I know Joe's going to take care of it. Because they're going to run into other people. They're on the hunts. Oh, I got a taxidermist over here, and I got a taxidermist over there. But if you take care of these people properly, they're going to say, no, I've got my guy.
And it's before we started recording here, I was talking to Joe about hunt stock, and now that was kind of the first time in my life where I was paying attention to every single detail leading up to that for months and months in advance, where people showed up to that event and they were like, I've never been to an event that was this well organized, and this is a first-year event. That's pretty incredible, and that's what I wanted them to leave with. But at the end of that weekend, my brain was absolutely fried because I cared about it that much, and yet that's what you can tell, that you care about this that much, that your brain is fried at the end of the day every day because you're paying attention to all the details.
Yeah, this isn't my job, it's my life. I'm 60 years old. I've been doing taxidermy since I was 12 years old every day of my life. I've been doing taxidermy for a full-time business since the day I graduated high school. And, it's different today. There's so many ways. You talk about, you get burned out halfway through the day because there's so many ways that people are contacting us today. It used to be a telephone call.
Yeah.
Now it's email, text message, messenger, the phone, customers coming through the door. It's constant. And the important thing that I found out is when somebody contacts me, you need to get back to them immediately. These people, this is their trophy. It's very important to them. And, once I get an email that something's being shipped, I get back to them right away. As soon as we receive it in the mail, I get back to them right away. It's fulfillment for the client. It makes them comfortable.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about their trophies.
Yeah. And not only that, if you didn't get back to people right away, you're going to have a stack of to-do lists that you can never get ahead of once you let a few of those things pile on each other.
You're absolutely right. And I try to tell that to my girls in the office. I says, you got to take care of everything that comes in today because tomorrow's a new day. And if you can't get through what you got today, what makes you going to think you're going to be able to get through 2 days?
Yeah. And then it becomes even more overwhelming.
More overwhelming.
Yeah. Just everything that Joe's saying, it goes back to, I came here, I've got another taxidermist, and I've liked him a lot, and but the last deer that I brought to him, it was my biggest deer ever, 184 pounds. It was my biggest scoring deer too, and he was just a real big deer, and he came back and he looked small, and he was smaller than the 140-pound deer that I have on the wall. And that's where Joe knew exactly what it was and showed me, an out-of-the-box form, and looked at the picture. He goes, that looks just like this out-of-the-box form, right? That is an amalgamation of all the different deer species, one size fits all type form, and that's why I already know leaving that deer here, and that deer is a special deer for me too, and this year it's such a cool story. I already know it's going to be in really good hands because you showed me the difference between that form and then the forms that are more northern for northern deer with shorter necks, thicker necks, broader snouts, right? everything. It looks like the deer that I shot, and I can't wait to get, one of those on the wall and see the difference.
I'm looking forward to it. All the little things add up to the big picture, especially in taxidermy.
Yeah. Now, so another thing we were talking about is if you get into the business in the world of hunting, you want to make a living in the outdoor space, you sacrifice a lot of hunting and fishing time typically. Did you ever hunt and fish? Were you big into hunting and fishing at all in your life?
Generally, I come from an artistic background. My father was an artist, I'm an artist, and I love wildlife. And this is a perfect fit for me. When I was younger, I did a little hunting and fishing and trapping, and I really enjoyed it. But, to run a business like this, unfortunately, you have to sacrifice your hunting and fishing. I mean, I can't. This is a full commitment.
Yeah.
We've done very well in taxidermy. I'm not going to lie, we've done very well in taxidermy, but it came with a price.
Of course.
It came with a price. I mean, it sacrificed all my free time. We put everything we got into it. We start at 5 in the morning and sometimes hope to get out at 5 o'clock at night, but sometimes it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And sometimes it's 7 days a week. But that's what it takes. That's what it took me to be successful in the outdoor industry.
And you've got when you're working that many hours and you're so passionate about it, you have to have a great team around you, right? You have to assemble. How important is it to assemble the right team?
We're producing wildlife art and doing a large volume of it. And for me to consistently produce this product and get it back to people on time, I'm only as good as the people that I have behind me. My people have been with me for years and years and years. I have the same crew. They're very, very artistic. They're very passionate about what they do, and they care. They care just as much about the product as I do. I'm very, very lucky that way.
And what do you say, as a leader, as the owner of the business, right? What do you do to make sure that they feel appreciated, respected, and they want to come into work every single day? I just think it's important. I've been in part of companies where, you feel underappreciated constantly, and that's what makes you, do a bad job or not want to do your best job for a boss or an owner, right? So what is it that you do here that the family is so tight-knit that they they really look forward to working every day?
Well, we are like one big family here. We've been working together for a long time. The thing is, it can get hectic, especially come show season. We do work for a lot of the major outfitters, and they want their trophies back for their clients so they can bring them to the shows. And that is a very challenging time.
Stressful.
Very stressful. And I have to come through. They're counting on me, and there's no not coming through. And my guys know that. But it does, like I said, you can see the stress on their face. You can feel the stress in the room that time of year.
Yep.
But I'm constantly, thanking my guys and telling them, we did a great job. I like the expression you did on this. I tell them each job we do, I tell them I want this to look like that. I want to do this like this. It's all under my direction. And then I'll check in, and my hands are on every project. But, they have free reign as well. And I'll constantly compliment them on how nice of a job they do.
Yeah.
And we have a meeting once a week, and we try to make it as positive as possible. We get a lot of emails. For example, we just received our trophy. We couldn't be happier. I print that off. Text messages that people are happy. People send us letters in the mail. I bring them to each meeting and read them off and thank each person.
Yep.
Each month I have a spotlight on one of my employees, and he's the monthly employee. We try to buy lunch for the guys once a month, a different place. We try to show them how much we appreciate them, because we do.
Yeah. And it's it is such an important, when you get those emails and you get those text messages or, people saying how great of a job you do, that's probably the reason that keeps fueling you to do it. Because at the end of the day, people are bringing a lot of people. I mean, most of your revenue is coming from probably the big clients and repeat guys that, are doing multiple animals with you in a year, right? But sometimes it's the only thing that a person's ever going to get mounted, right? And it's so important for them to have something that they're going to cherish and love and appreciate for the rest of their lives.
Oh, yeah, and the way we look at it, too, and I've always been this way, I will treat the guy with the largest African collection the same as I treat a kid who rides in here on a bicycle with a largemouth bass he caught in a farm pond down the street. Everybody gets the same consideration. Everybody gets the same amount of time from me.
Yeah.
It's important.
Totally important. Yeah, you learn a lot from people by how they treat the little guy, is the expression, you know. Are they treating the little guy the same as they do, you know, a millionaire, a billionaire, whatever. I always, same thing. I've met a lot of famous people in my life, and you know, if you get starstruck or you treat them any differently, they kind of lose a little. They get that all the time. They want to be treated just like everybody else too, celebrities, and I just feel like it's a great philosophy to have in a business too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also like just another analogy that's coming to mind. You know, where your studio stands out compared to others to me, like we said, it's like you can do the out of the box, you can assemble, or you can create a piece of artwork. It kind of feels like, you know, guys who are in a cover band and all they're doing is playing cover band stuff all the time versus, you know, when they're writing their own songs and they're performing their own songs. It's got to feel, you know, those out of the box studios are kind of like cover band. They get by, they do it, their job passes. People are listening, you know, passively, and you know that's the kind of thing. But when you create and you perform your own song, I think that's what you're doing here, and every one of your guys are doing that.
I don't think that I would be doing this if I wasn't able to take each piece and do an original art piece out of it. I mean, it would just be too boring. And I look at every job that I do as if it was my own. I do it for my own self-satisfaction first. When it's done, then I call the customer. But I do it for my own self-satisfaction, and so don't my guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen it in Jim Lavasser's mounts. You know, I did a whole podcast in his trophy room, and I don't know if you ever saw that. You're probably so busy, but I
did see it.
There's a good video up there looking at his whole trophy room and kind of telling the stories of each of them, and you just look at how beautiful the mounts come out. Northeast Big Buck Club came out to hunt stock. A lot of your mounts were on the wall, Jim's and other clients of yours, and you know, I'm super excited to see what that one comes out to look like. That chocolate rack was my first real big buck.
It's a nice deer too.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you do it, and it was awesome to come down and check out the studio and see what you guys are all about.
Well, I think Jim gave you our name.
He did. Yeah.
Jim's a great guy. Yeah. Since the day I've met him, he has gone out of his way to send me so many different people. He's a great guy. He's very serious about his taxidermy.
He is. He is, and his hunting.
Yes, and his hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim's great, and thanks for the connection, Jim. And hopefully, if you're not super busy around, I mean, you always are, but in August next year, come out to hunt stock. And we want to get the best of everybody, and no matter what it is they're doing, the best hunters we have there. We've had Hal Blood there and Lanny Benoit, and I think this year it's going to be some more even national guys that are coming because the word got out about hunt stock being just a unique experience and a really cool a different take on hunting shows. We want to have the best of the best in each category and in their niches and stuff. So we would love to have you there if you can make the time to do it.
Yeah. I'll see. You know, this year we're putting together a crew. I've always done all the shows myself, loaded the trailer, set up the displays. I just don't have that kind of time anymore.
Yep.
But we talked with my team this year of assembling a crew that just does shows, so I can stay in the studio and continue to work, and that's what we're working towards, and hopefully we'll be able to go out and put a nice display for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, thanks a lot. I know you're busy, so we won't take any more of your time. But
I appreciate everything. Thank you.
That's been great.
Nice to have met you.
Yep, you too.
That was easy.
Super easy, right?
Yeah, well, you're really good at it.
Oh, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, you are really good at it.
I appreciate it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Joe's an awesome guy, as you can see. And if you want to get your deer done and done the right way, and you want it to match the actual size of the deer that you shot down to a T, bring it down to Joe and his whole family down there. They got a great group of guys that are all dedicated, all really highly skilled artists, and they will take care of you. If you want, if it's your first time going there, you can mention that you heard about it on Hunt Suburbia podcast, and just let them know where you're coming from. And so let's get into kind of what's been going on since I killed that 8-pointer the first week. And actually, just to tie in, you probably heard a little bit in the podcast with Joe there, but I brought that 8-pointer down so that because it had a very similar cape to the chocolate rack 8-pointer that I killed last year that the coyotes destroyed. So I wanted to get that deer mounted. He was a special deer, and so he can be on the wall next to the other big 8-pointer I got last year. So I knew that they'd be in good hands with Joe down there, and I can't wait to see how that comes out. But so since that first week, killed that 8-pointer, I saw a lot of deer that week, and then I took a few days off. I didn't hunt much that second week. I think I went in a couple of times, and then the third week, once zone 9 and under, all the way through the western side of the state opened up. It opened up a lot of places that I had been scouting and wanting to get into some stands. So really, I've been generally mostly hunting out west of zone 10 in all of those zones. And I got into one of my bigger wood spots. You guys may have seen the video by now. I started getting some nice pictures of different mature bucks in a new spot that I hadn't hunted before, so I was eager to get out there. And that third week, I heavily hunted in there. I think I sat twice without seeing a deer, and then the third time I went in, it was my first all-day sit. I was in my climber, so it was pretty comfortable, but I was in there well before light in the morning, sat all day, saw nothing again, and then at just after 5 o'clock, a big buck was coming in from behind me, right on the trail that I walked in. So he was right on my boot track, and my wind was going that way too, so it was really odd. I was not expecting a deer to come through there, but anyways, I look behind me, I hear him coming, look behind me, and I see a big rack. Get the binoculars on real quick. I notice it's the big 6 that I knew was in there from a trail cam picture. And in my head, I said, if he comes by, I want to let him go because there's a couple other bigger ones in here, and I have all season. So I kind of made up my mind before even sitting down that if I saw that big 6, I would let him go. So I realized it was him, and then just focused on getting some good video. So I put that video up. He came right down into Broadway. He pissed in a scrape that I have my camera was set up on this scrape, and my tree stand, my climber was 13 yards away from it. He goes right to it and just pees in it, tends the licking branch, smells it, and then pees in the scrape, but he doesn't open it up, and it still hasn't been opened up to this day. It's November 5th now, and that scrape is still closed, and I could open it up, but I just want to see when the first buck's going to open it up this year. I'm just going to run a little experiment on it. But yeah, he came through. He peed in it. He left his scent on the licking branch, but he didn't open it up, which was a little weird. But he keeps going. Perfect broadside, 13-yard shot. He was a dead deer if I wanted to take him. And I let him go, and it was tough, but it was fun. It was fun to watch him. It kind of got a great feeling letting him go. And, now, like, I've been hunting that same spot a lot. I've hunted it, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 sits. And most of them right over that scrape in my camera there. And then two other times actually, south of there, 300 yards in a different spot when the wind was different. But altogether, probably 10 times I've gone in there. And I have only seen that one buck, and then I saw two doe last Saturday in the spot a couple hundred yards south. So it's a lot of sitting for not very many deer, but I keep going in there because bucks, I'm getting different bucks on that camera in front of that scrape in daylight. They just happen to be on days that I am not in there. And sometimes on a Sunday I'm getting them. But there's they're consistently going through there. And then sometimes after I leave, an hour after I get out of the stand, there's a buck there in that camera too. And they're different bucks. I think I have 7 different bucks, and 5 of them are mature. I got a young piebald that went by the other day in daylight, a little 4-pointer, but he's got a beautiful piebald cape, and he's a cool one. I would definitely pass him, and if he has a chance to make it to maturity, it would be really cool to get a mature piebald, but I'm not going to shoot him as a young deer just because he's piebald. But he was in daylight, and so long story short, there's a lot of bucks going through there in daylight. There's some does going through there. I saw some does, on last Saturday. So as soon as the does get hot, I think it's gonna heat up in there, and it's one of those spots. It's hard to get into. It's a long walk every time. I enjoy going through kind of that struggle to get way back in there. And I like the hard work. It's much more rewarding. And with that 6-pointer being passed, it's I really want to get a bigger one in there now. But at this point, I have been saying the last few sits going in there, if that 6-pointer comes by again, now I'll probably shoot him. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, dude, you don't pass something, the first day that you would shoot on the last day. And that's the old adage. And I don't quite believe in that. Like your options change, your thought process changes. If I would have shot that buck that first time, my season, mostly for bucks would have been over. So then I'd be focusing on just zone 10 doe, which is fine. But I had a lot more learning to do in this new spot, and a lot more learning to do in these big woods areas. And because I passed him, I have been expanding, and learning a lot more, and really hunting these new areas harder, and setting myself up for the future. Still knowing that the best parts of the rut hasn't even happened yet. It's just starting to fire up now. I'm seeing chasing on cameras, getting a lot of reports of chasing, seeing lots of videos, different group chats and stuff that I'm in. So like, why not? I passed him. I had fun passing him. Got great video of him. But if I do see him now, I probably will shoot him. And also another thing that happened after I passed him that wouldn't have happened if I had shot him that day is I got my first private permission on what I think is going to be an awesome productive spot. And I wouldn't have been actively seeking permission. I just wouldn't have. If I was tagged out on bucks, I just probably wouldn't have thought of it. So the fact that I knocked on a few doors and got this awesome permission, I think that that just wouldn't have happened if I was tagged out. So now I've got this new spot surrounded by lots of places that are unhuntable, and I've got a little 10 to 15 acre piece surrounded by that stuff. There's got to be some good bucks going through there every once in a while. I set up some cameras, done a little bit of scouting, and actually had my first sit there last night. Got permission 9 days ago. Put 5 cameras in there, 2 cell cams and 3 regular cams. The cell cams have had a spike and a small 4-pointer on them, a couple of doe. And then I went in last night and checked the other cameras that were not cell cams, and there's a couple of other bucks in there, but still nothing huge, nothing great. 2.5-year-old 7-pointer. Maybe he's 3, but he's got a kind of a scrubby rack, some broken tines. I think a bigger 4-pointer that's probably nicer than that 7 has better potential. And then there's a real little 8-pointer in there too. Those are probably just kind of the local deer living right on and around that property, because they're on those cameras quite a few times. But with this type of what's surrounding it, really thick, nasty, wet, swampy areas, and big, wide, that nasty what do you call it, power line too, and all that stuff builds up. It's just really great bedding that surrounds this place, and hundreds and hundreds of acres of it. Probably, I think it's like 400 or 600 contiguous acres of that kind of stuff. That is effectively sanctuaries. So there's got to be some real big bucks in there, and just got to be sitting in the right spot when they happen to be coming through that property looking for does here probably in this next week. So a lot of good things have come from me passing that buck, and I think that I'm going to be rewarded, I hope, at some point this season with a nice big buck to tag out on bucks. And keep going back into that other spot too. There's no way I'm giving up on that other spot because I have private permission. I've been going in there since I got that permission. I've been going in there 2 or 3 more times. I just learned more about it yesterday morning. I was in there and got up around 10 to take a big walk and check out a spot that I hadn't looked at yet with feet on the ground, but I've been looking at an Onyx from that stand. Just putting pieces of the puzzle together there. And it's one of those places. It's big woods, but there's quite a few stands. I marked 3 other stands down yesterday on that little loop that I did. I wouldn't have known that they were there if I didn't take that loop. And I always mark down on Onyx any stands that I find, and I change them to black icons, which just tells me that there's somebody else's kind of active stand there. And if it's a stand, but it's old and it doesn't look active, then I change it to white. I like color coding stuff on Onyx. So, yeah, it's one of those things that it's bigger woods, but there is a lot of stands. I kind of wonder where people are coming in from, because the way I get in, it's a long walk. There's very few houses around this piece, so I just wonder what side, where they're coming in from, but anyway, I haven't seen another hunter. I've been in there 9 times. I haven't seen another hunter yet. So I don't know it might be gun stands mostly. But there's some nice bucks in there, so that's going to happen. The bigger the woods you get into, the more places those big bucks have to hide away. And even if it looks like it's a heavily hunted place and you see a lot of stands, don't overlook it, because I do feel like I'm going to kill a big buck in there this year. What else can we go over? So, the Austin buck, I found a really small postage stamp place where I have a chance of getting the Austin buck. And this is a spot that I never looked at before. I just hadn't, for some reason in my head, I'm like, they're not going to be here. They won't be over here. I know summer's over there, but in this spot, the Austin buck's not going to be there. There's too much stuff going on. There's trails close by. But it is a postage stamp of legal. I think it's, when I use the area shape thing, it's like 4.5 acres. But some of it's long, skinny acreage. And then there's a little piece that opens up. And, after passing that 6, I went down in there to check a camera I have in the summer location, which you can't hunt. I went and checked it, and the Austin buck was in there a day before I checked it. This was like late October. And so I was like, you know what? I need to, I haven't gone and boots on the ground and looked at it. I'm just going to go in there and look at that spot that I thought would be, no way that there would be deer hanging out in there. So I went over and looked, and dude, there were some amazing beds, some great bedding, and some trails going into there, and some fresh buck clumps of poop. And I was like, this might be where and come to find out, it's also, if you guys have seen, I think one of the last podcasts I did, where there's no video, I open it up with, and we do a bunch of game camera videos and stuff. There's like a 6-minute open of me staring down a buck in the summer. You can just see his head in this rack, and he's 10 yards away from me in some high green stuff. That's the spot where that buck was bedded there, and I just didn't think of it. But when I was going through there, he got up out of his bed and stood there, and we had a stare off for 6 minutes, and that whole thing is on the podcast. So check that out on YouTube. He was a nice big. That's not the Austin buck. I thought it was at first, but he's not. He's another big 8-pointer, and he's wider than the Austin buck. But he was bedding there, and that is the one postage stamp area of legal. And I don't know why it just didn't click to me to go in there. Probably because it looked like there were no trees to be able to get a stand into. I would have had to bring a tripod in there or something, or hunt from the ground. But I went in there end of October after I saw the Austin buck in the unhuntable piece a day before. I was like, man, he's still in here. let me go check this out. Went in, and there's some great bedding. So then I just looking for any kind of a tree I could get up into. And I found one that is pretty skinny, but I was like, you know what? That is going to work. And it was 25 yards away from this really nice trail that comes out of that unhuntable piece onto this postage stamp of huntable, where there were at least 2 really nice beds and bedding locations and a lot of fresh poop. So I put a camera up on that trail, on the huntable piece, a cell cam, and that triggered 2 days later in the morning, in daylight at 7:30, and it was the Austin buck. And I was like, oh, sweet. So then I bring in my saddle, and I haven't really been using the saddle. I've got the trophy line saddle this year, and I was like, this is the excuse. I need to start using it. So I climbed up that small tree and set it up. One night I was gonna sit there. I think it was that same night, but that I got the Austin buck on camera. I went in to set up, only 2 sticks high. Can't get much higher than that for what I had for a tree. 2 sticks high platform there. And it started thundering and lightning, and it was coming in quick. I got out of there fast, and then I went back, left the sticks up, platform, everything. Went back in the next morning to hunt it. It was kind of nice that only going up 2 sticks, and leaving it in the tree overnight. Like it was a good way to ease into getting used to the saddle. So I hunted there 2 or 3 times with the right wind, but didn't see any deer. And Austin buck I haven't got another picture of him since, so I don't know where he is now, but that kind of springed me into hunting the saddle more. So pretty much since that day, I've been exclusively hunting with the saddle, which is another thing. If I killed that 6 early, who knows how much I would have done from the saddle. Probably would have started using it for some does, but I'm just carrying that saddle in and out of this deep wood spot, and I used it in my private spot last night, and I left it up in the tree last night because I had 2 bucks come in at last light, those smaller bucks, and there were does around me too, and I just didn't want to clink, go through the whole thing risking clinking those sticks and the platform and all that together. So I just left it hanging in there. But I've been using it and really, really loving it and enjoying it. I've even done a couple of all-day sits in it, and I have a bad lower back, and it is pretty uncomfortable for an all-day sit. Just with my lower back, got to make adjustments and sit different ways every 10 minutes you're switching a position because it just kind of gets uncomfortable after a while. But it is really, really nice for a couple hours, and it's really durable. It's even a little, I think it might be a little lighter, but it's not like it's that much lighter than my climber, which I was exclusively hunting out of before. The climber is more comfortable for sure, but it's a lot louder. It's a lot more cumbersome, and it just kind of sucks to bring in, and especially if you're wearing a backpack. That was the worst part with the climber. You either got a reverse backpack, put the backpack on your front where your belly is, and then the climber on the back, or you attach the backpack to the climber, and it just makes everything really heavy and cumbersome and loud. But that's the main advantage of this the saddle is it's much quieter and less cumbersome. So any long walk or smaller trees you want to get up, there's definitely a lot of advantages, and I've been enjoying it. So yeah, that's basically been the tail of the tape for the last couple of weeks. I have not been seeing a ton of deer. I saw a lot of deer that first week, and since then I think I've seen 5 deer total. The spot that I'm hunting in those deep woods where I passed that 6, got the piebald and a couple other nice mature bucks in there. That spot, the one thing that I wish is there that isn't is acorns right now. So I haven't been able to locate the food source in there. Every single tree is an oak, pretty much where I'm sitting. You look up and I can see 200 oak trees from that stand location.
What the hell?
But I don't think they're dropping. There's no acorns. I haven't found any acorns on the ground, so they're all barren this year for whatever reason in there. I don't know what they're eating, but I do know that I'm sitting in a funnel. The reason I'm there is It's a nice funnel. It's a pinch point between two swamps. If they want to get from one end of the swamp to the other, they go through there. It is about 150 yards wide probably, but I'm on what I think is the best trail there. It was pretty well beaten into the ground. There were a couple of scrapes where I put that camera, and my camera has been showing. They're going through there in daylight. It's not like it's every day. It's every 2 or 3 days a nice buck goes by that camera in daylight. It just so happens out of all the sits, it's only happened once for me when I've been there, and I passed up the deer. But I'm in there hunting the pinch points. I'm in there hunting because there are mature bucks around. But it's a really big piece, and I've only probably explored 25% of it. And the other 75 might be where, there's holding acorns or a different food source. And on the way other side of it, there's some farms. There's a Christmas tree farm. There's some other stuff like that, some fields. So they might be over there on the field edges as well. But they're doing loops, and during the rut, they're going to come through this funnel. So it's going to be more of a rut spot. I'm going to let it cool down in there for a little while here until my cameras start lighting up again. When it gets real cold, and sometime next week, in the teens, November, 10th through the 25th, that week, I'm going to be up in there at some point and doing some all-day sits, probably a couple of them. But until then, I'm going to try to do a couple sits in this private spot and try to find the Austin buck, see where he's gone. I've got a lot of cameras soaking, too. There's one I got to get out way west of my biggest piece of woods that has had nothing but mature bucks go by very infrequently. But when I get a picture, it's a mature buck, and that's another great funnel spot. But that camera died like 5 to 6 days ago. I got to go out and change the batteries there, so I'll do that, hunt that one evening. And then there's been a camera soaking that's a non-cell cam down there too. So I'll go and do that one day, see what's going on in them big woods. That's 20,000 acres or something, so that's really, really big woods. And then try to knock down a doe here. Been eating a lot of the venison already from that first 8-pointer, doing some great stuff.